Hi, you're listening to a Pod for Good Media Network podcast. We are a network that provides podcasting production services and a supportive community in which podcasters can thrive. If you're a podcaster local in the Tulsa area, we would love to have your show on the network. If you are interested in starting one, we would love to help you get started. Find us online at podforgoodmedia.com and fill out our Pod With Us form. Happy podcasting. Welcome to another episode of Pod for Good, a podcast where we learn from those doing good in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the world. Why they care, what we can do, and most importantly, what you, the listeners, can do. Pod for Good is produced and edited by Pod for Good Media. So if you like how we sound and are thinking about starting a podcast, reach out to me. I am easy to find. Pod for Good can be found anywhere you get your podcasts. So if you enjoy what we do, please make sure to subscribe and share this episode on social media. I am, as always, your chief philanthropod and class clown for remembering which is the good Chamber of Commerce, Jesse Ulrich.
And I'm your Vice Admiral Philanthropod and class clown for Greenwood being bigger than just one street, Chris Miller.
This episode, we're talking with President of the Black Wall Street Chamber of Commerce, Kuma Roberts.
We talked to Kuma about Black Wall Street Chamber of Commerce, how they're supporting Black entrepreneurs in the spirit of Black Wall Street, and how they're making Greenwood a travel destination.
We are very excited to have Kuma back on the podcast. Kuma, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really good. Thank you, Jesse. Hi, Chris.
Hello.
It's good to see you guys.
It's nice to be in person doing this interview.
Yes.
Because that's when we interviewed you last time. I think it was 2020, maybe 2021.
Yep.
All a blur.
It is all a blur, but we were in lockdown at the time, and that was 2 employers for you ago. So it has been a very busy time for you. And so I'm very excited to talk about your role as the CEO and president of the Black Wall Street Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, thank you. But get it right. Black Wall Street Chamber.
And not the Black Wall Street Chamber of Commerce. Just
Black Wall Street Chamber. Right. Maybe I should have put the on it.
No, yeah, here's the thing. People are going to put the anyway.
Yeah, they
so,
are. And they always do.
Just like my issue with Gathering Place, which is called Gathering Place, not the Gathering Place.
Listen, I go by a lot of things. I just do not go by the way someone introduced themselves to me the other day. They said, "You're the Freeman Culver of the Black Wall Street Chamber of Commerce." And I said, and that's the president of the Greenwood Chamber. And I said, whoa. I will take a lot, but I will not be introduced as the Freeman Culver of the Black Wall Street Chamber of Commerce.
In the circle,
he should be named the Kuma Roberts.
Yes. Exactly. So in the circles I run in, especially with my communication with people working around Black Wall Street and North Tulsa, his name has never once come up in a positive fashion. So again, and that's just the circles I'm in.
Sure.
But let's talk about why are there 2 chambers of commerce for this area?
Yeah, well, I would say, I'm going to be a little naughty when I say this. People go, I get this question all the time, and I go, there's actually 13 different chambers of commerce across our city. There is the Southeast Asian Chamber of Commerce. There's the Native American Chamber of Commerce. There's the Bigsby Chamber, the Jinx Chamber, the Owasso Chamber. I could go on and on and on. And people get caught up in why are there 2 Black chambers? There's 2 Black chambers because at some point about 7 years ago, the chairman of the board and the president and CEO at the time, Sherry Gamble Smith, and Vanessa Hall Harper, who was chairman of the board at the time, got sideways with the board. They decided they were going to go a different direction. And they went off and started the Black Wall Street Chamber of Commerce. And that's as simple as that. It was just a in-the-moment issue between them. It's not, in my mind, an ongoing rivalry that, it was just like, I don't even know if the same leaders are there at the same time. And I'm certainly a very different leader. So anyway, that's the difference between the 2. We're just a different chamber.
So I guess, in my mind, when you name chambers of commerce, there's a border around what area they are doing their Chamber of Commercing. So between you and the Greenwood one, are you handling the same areas? Is it not really technically location based at all?
No, I think that's fair. I think in my mind, when I talk about the differences, I say Greenwood really serves the business owners that are on Greenwood. That to me makes the most sense. They are their landlords. Those people, they pay their rent to Greenwood Chamber. And so for them to provide services like a chamber to them is wonderful. I think that's amazing. But do they have members? I don't know that they have members. I think they have leasees, people who lease from them. Do they do regular events? I don't know. I can't tell you the last event I went to that they had. Do they partner with really good resources like the Small Business Administration? But that's through the Greenwood Women's Business Center. So it's not exactly the Greenwood Chamber. So there's just these little differences. I think that, and I would say the Black Wall Street Chamber serves everyone else. And we don't want to just be the chamber serving one block in Tulsa. We want to be the chamber that's serving the needs of the Black entrepreneur across the nation because of the legacy of the original Black Wall Street. And so we think that that has value across the nation. And so I'm not hung up on the block. Hey, help and support, give as many acute resources as you can to those folks. We'll be the chamber that takes up everything else. And so that's kind of how I've approached it.
So let's take a step back. And can you tell us exactly what a chamber of commerce is and kind of what they do and really what you think they should do?
Yeah, well, from the business standpoint, it's all about business. So chambers, and I always say that we're the engine of the city. So when I was at the Tulsa Regional Chamber, we partnered on things like tourism, right? Making sure that we had the appropriate materials, maps, things to attract both visitors to the city, new people to live and come and make Tulsa their home, headquartered businesses, those kinds of things was really bread and butter of the chamber. And they got some dollars from both the city and the state in order to do that work, as well as economic development, which is about the investment of infrastructure, the creation of new buildings, new headquarters, new businesses being built and brought to Tulsa. So there was that piece through Tulsa's Future. And then we had community development, which I did, which was about DEI and the commitment of our local corporations buying into the value of diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as a really full stack communications team that was almost just like world class. And I feel like I'm missing another division, the Sports Commission, which was attracting, Big 12 and soccer tournaments and Quidditch and all of the things that would come to Tulsa. So chambers really are the key sort of liaison. They had salespeople who were going to all the conventions, trying to say, come to Tulsa, be a part of what we have going on in all of these different areas. Our chamber isn't as large as them, and we don't get that 45% state appropriation dollars. So our commitment is to really get involved in the community. And so we're much more community driven, if that makes sense, versus having this high dollar investment from a bunch of corporations, which in my mind became pay to play a little bit. Our chamber can't operate that way. And so really it's about providing uncommon access and providing a comprehensive suite of services like marketing support. Right? Like you were talking about podcasts, like how to even do a podcast or how to tell stories. We have a lot of desire and a lot of businesses creeping up in those areas. And so that's what I think our chamber does best, is help make sure that we provide that access to those individuals.
So I know that both the National Chamber, State Chamber, they sometimes get involved politically trying to fight for what they see as the interest of their constituents.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes what they fight for isn't maybe what their entire constituent base wants, but maybe the more prominent or majority. How do you see the role of your chamber or chambers in general in fighting for maybe the rights of their constituents?
Oh my gosh. Well, I was just telling Emma that I went to the Tulsa Regional Chamber stay at the Capitol, and they had over 100 people that were there. And in terms of people of color, it was myself and my team, and maybe two other people, Archie Anthony, city councilor being one, and another business owner being the other. And it's disheartening to see that, but we had already reviewed their one voice agenda. And so we know the areas that make the most sense in terms of alignment. But there are some line items that we can talk in terms of contracts with city and or state government. So there's some things that I think are really great legislative advancements. The issue has been capacity. Our chamber, it's just like 3 of us on staff. And so Mike Neal can spend, a whole half a week, 20 hours in Oklahoma City on any given week. And I just don't have the capacity to do that. And so it's great to be aligned with them. They are aligned with us, and we support the One Voice agenda, but we have not yet had that conversation about how we can work together to share resources like the state appropriation dollars that they get to do tourism with. We do believe that some of those dollars need to come to our chamber so that we can do the work of tourism for Greenwood and for Black Wall Street. And I don't think they would argue with that, but it's not a conversation we've broached yet, but we will. Yeah.
So I think for a lot of people who think, maybe, I don't want to make assumptions about people, but let's just say that the majority of Oklahomans who, if they've even heard of Greenwood, when they come to town and they go to that sort of section of Greenwood that we all sort of see where things are, that aren't OSU Tulsa, they view that as the entirety of whatever Black Wall Street Greenwood thing they are being, they are interacting with.
Yeah.
But when we talk about that, we're not talking just about that 2 blocks.
Right.
You're talking about the miles and miles of what would have been the Greenwood area.
Yes.
And also, I guess, kind of the spirit, spiritual descendants of it, not just the geographic location.
Absolutely. So was there a question there, or were you just saying?
Good. That's an interesting point. I had a question when I started. I guess what I'm asking is, and Tulsa has, every city has its own fun little, interesting, political fights between sections. And I feel like Tulsa does seem to put a lot of energy into downtown. And for listeners, I'm doing air quotes here. But I feel like a lot of that downtown work ignores the Greenwood area.
Absolutely.
And so, it's also, I feel like one of the areas of downtown that has the most potential for growth.
I 100% agree with you on that. Part of the discussion I had when I was at the One Voice Day at the Capitol was I wanted to look at Lieutenant Governor Pinnell in the face because we hosted him in my office last October. And in the meeting in my office, we were talking to him about how much goes to the large chamber, and he said, Kuma, you know what? I know through my work with the tourism department that the number one requested spot that when people are wanting to come to Oklahoma, it's Greenwood and it's Black Wall Street. And he said, and I'm telling you that there are dollars at the state level available to do that work, but there has not been an organization willing to lift its hand and say, we're strong enough, we're sustainable enough, we're ready to be able to really make haste and do something with those dollars. We're saying we're ready now, but I think that's been their excuse is to that point is, there's never been anyone ready to do it. We'd happily do it, but there's no
How can an organization be ready if they don't get that funding from the state in the first place?
If they don't get the funding. So it's a process, state appropriation dollars. He promised a letter of support, Lieutenant Governor Matt Pinnell, but at the day at the Capitol, he was speaking again. And I spoke to the whole group of this 120 people or whatever that was there. I said, can you readmit your support for Greenwood being a part of this? And he again restated, I fully support state appropriation dollars going to the Black Wall Street Chamber in order to do the work of tourism for Black Wall Street. So we're going to see if he'll put his money where his mouth is.
I feel like you should get some of the revenue that the Driller Stadium generates as it is.
Oh my gosh.
Hovering over you.
My word. One of my greatest frustrations is that stadium. And I think it's beautiful. And I've been in there many times. But when I did have a really decent relationship with the Greenwood Chamber, I heard that they have to pay $50,000 annually in taxes to the Stadium Trust as part of the TID or whatever, the TIF or whatever set up down there. That means that they only exist because $50,000 to pay taxes just allows them to stay in those buildings and be able to be the landlords that they are. And they barely make that every year. So to me, part of the work that I'd like to see happen in tourism is a revenue share agreement where there are dollars put aside in a trust situation, very much like the trust, that goes back, I'm not saying to the control of Greenwood Chamber, but something very relevant to the revitalization of Greenwood and that block itself that's going to really build it back up. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
What do you see as some of the future growth opportunities for your chamber?
Yeah, I think there's plenty of opportunity for us to think about revolving loan funds, for us to think about unique ways and partnerships in the tourism area. I think there's opportunity for a signature event that is later in the year. And I don't know, a la Juneteenth, but something like that in order to attract people here and then make some sort of presence for the chamber. I could go on and on. Our programming is pretty amazing. We've got the NEST program, which is our 9-week entrepreneurship program that's being taken over by Ramond Walker. Do you know Ramond Walker? Mm-hmm. He's incredible. He's revamping the program for us. It's launching now and looking for applicants to join us for the new program. We have a partnership with Kitchen Culture, which is run by Chef Chad Cherry. And that's mobilizing all the available commercial kitchen space for startup entrepreneurs in the food service industry. And then we have our Black Contractors Alliance, which is our partnership with Tulsa Housing Authority in order to make sure more of our contractors get the work that's happening at 36th Street North and in North Tulsa predominantly. And so we're really excited to be a part of some of that. Some other things we're looking at is health and healthcare. How do we think about a real clinic in Greenwood? How do we think about serving that solopreneur at the insurance level, not just looking at charity care, right? And you having to be sort of on this low income Section 8, but how are we serving that workforce level individual or entrepreneur that's just starting out? And so I think there's some solutions that I think our chamber can help support.
There have been some, for those paying attention, some fairly public issues in the Greenwood area with some long time, some startup businesses not being able to stay in their space.
Yeah.
And we don't have to get into the specifics of why if you don't want to, but I am curious, what can your chamber or other people do to create a more business-friendly environment for the entire historic Black Wall Street area?
Sure. Part of that situation, I'll just be honest, I don't know what happened there. I've heard a couple of stories, and I would say the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle of both the things that I heard. What I will say that I wish either Greenwood or we could have done was been ready with another commercial space for them to immediately move into, given that that didn't work out. And why did they have to all of a sudden leave Tulsa when they already had an incredible following in Oklahoma City? That to me was like, why weren't we were so worried about like what was happening in the moment or who said what or whatever that I was going, well, where are they going to go?
Yeah.
And that breaks my heart. So I wish that we had had more of the wraparound services, more dollars ready to be able to say, hey, we know a commercial space. We've got our realtor, Rosalind Williams with NARAB. She's already got a space that's ready to go. You guys can be in by Monday. We got the down for it. You know, like that kind of support would have been incredible. And it just was terrible that it was just like here and then gone again. So that's the kind of stuff that I'd like to be able to do more of.
Is there enough capacity and space for the businesses that want to move into the area?
I think so. I mean, if you look at what's happening at the Box Yard, it's run by Renee Bramlett. Renee Bramlett has her own business, the Shade Room Eyewear, but has been kind of taking it upon herself to really fill the Box Yard with a lot of Black and brown business owners. And so I think that is a great model. And they're not on Greenwood. They're further south on Greenwood. But I still think that their programming and their efforts are getting more people to go down that way. And I'm all about Greenwood being the spirit. Doesn't have to be for me on Greenwood. This could be Greenwood for all. You know what I mean? This is Greenwood.
Yeah. I was like, wait, I think
let me be real. We are in Greenwood. But do you know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of space and capacity. We also work with the original Black Wall Street Merchant Marketplace. She's been popping up on Greenwood through the Greenwood Chamber for many years, but has recently joined with us. And we'll be using the Vernon AME parking lot in order to pop up. And so she's providing 20, 30 vendors opportunities to sell, have their wares available during all the festivals. And we're just really excited about that partnership. Shout out to Megan Scott with the original Black Wall Street Merchant Marketplace.
I want to talk about what I think this area of downtown's like oldest still standing building and how it still exists is that U-Haul building.
Right?
What is up? Like, what are they funneling money for? Like illegal funds? How is that? Are U-Hauls that profitable?
Like a 100-year lease at 1950s prices.
I mean, if
I don't know how it happened.
If storage places are that like money generating, like I want to get in that business.
They're pretty lucrative,
right? Yeah, I mean, it's just like the fact that building is still there with all these new things like just crowding it.
Yeah.
And it's just this incredibly
people might
old
be living
building
in there for the most part. You
Yeah.
never know.
I mean, that spinning U-Haul truck has never broken down.
It's never broken down.
Yeah.
That's the most amazing thing to me. I'm just like, that building's still there.
And no one's like trying to get them out.
No, I've never heard any pressure on that U-Haul building. So I'm like, what's
really going on?
Yeah, what are they storing in there? What is in there? Anyway, listeners, find out and let us know.
And let us know.
I mean, I've rented a U-Haul truck from there many times.
Me too.
I'm always like, the office that you walk into is tiny. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know the rest of it's storage, but I'm like, I've never seen anyone when I'm walking by it or picking up a U-Haul, I've never seen anyone put anything in storage. Yeah.
Right.
So what is happening? Anyway, that's a mystery I've always wanted to know. Yeah. So it's right across from the baseball stadium. It's like a perfect location for another
high rise or a retail development project.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yep. I mean, other than it has the train track right behind it, as all those buildings do.
Oh my God.
But yeah,
maybe there's mass graves.
Yeah. Right? I didn't want to say it, but I'm like, yeah. What are they hiding in there?
Something.
Yeah. So I would imagine your organization has to be a liaison a lot between businesses and government entities.
Sure.
So what is it like trying to coordinate with these different groups, especially when they have obviously different motivations?
Coordinate is really not the right word. I think for me, it's translate.
Yeah.
A lot of why I hired Emma at Impact Period was because of the translation of how to talk to funders and philanthropists. I think the same is for the community and business, or business as traditional business, right? I think we're used to working out of our homes or, right, solopreneurs, but really leveling up and like becoming what the difference between self-employed or entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people are self-employed. And we're trying to get people to make the leap from self-employment to entrepreneur. And that is, one of the biggest goals of the work of the chamber.
I mean, just on the self-employed thing, like I've always felt weird putting that. I'm like, I'm employed, whether it's by me or a company shouldn't really matter.
Right. But I'm employed.
Like, is there a little financial difference between the two, or is it just like how you view it? So
for me, it's about how you view it. I think that I know a lot of people who are entrepreneurs that don't have millions in the bank, but or just have that spirit, you know what I mean? And are going to keep trying it and keep going after it and creating something and doing something new. There's a lot of people that just are in the rat race, in the hustle, and they're making enough money that it feels like I get to do, but they're not thinking about scaling or like the sustainability of the business. And so you get sick, you get hurt, you're done, it's over. And then what next?
Oh, I guess it also depends on what kind of work it is. Like, for example, technically I work for myself, but literally I answer to my clients. So like I'm sort of their contractor.
Right.
So it doesn't feel like I'm working for myself in that way. But
Right.
I've always just been curious about that. Like filling out a credit card application, I'm like, I'm employed. It doesn't really matter who I'm employed by, but
Yeah.
So since you're not getting the sort of state, dollars that are designed for, tourism and Chamber of Commerce, other business, how do you raise funds?
Oh, this is very, very, very good. In the past, it's been very programmatic. It's been, we have the Nest program. It's 9 weeks. We're going out. We're asking people to support with their dollars, whether it's $1,000 or whatever. It takes, 20 to run the program, and we'll take whatever. I think that's how it's been in the past. Part of one of the ways that was important to me when I started at the chamber was to set us up for something that wasn't just so based on programs, something that was like, how do we fund operationally what we need to get done? Yes, the programs are there, but I needed to flip the model a little bit. I was watching my friend, Martha Zapata, over at the Tulsa Area Hispanic Chamber. She had just started as the chamber president at the Hispanic Chamber. And I'm telling you, she was doing an event every other week. She had a coffee with the governor and a mixer with the so-and-so and and I was like, I don't have it. I can't run at that pace if it's, and it looked great. All the logos were everywhere and the events were in the pictures, but she was killing herself. And I think she resigned as the chamber president. And so I just didn't want to make the same mistake. So we focused on really trying to align ourselves with some clear outcomes, some data. And we use the equality indicators as kind of these are some factors we think we can have a hand in. And then hiring really good people, smart people like Impact Period and my friend Emma Willis to help us like hone that and refine that. And so that's what we're in. That phase is what we're in now, really good strategic planning.
Now, and I feel like we talked about this when we interviewed you the last time, but it's like our chambers of commerce, how are they classified? Like they're not nonprofits, right?
No, they're C6s.
Okay.
And they're C6s because they have the ability to lobby. And then we also hold the Black Wall Street Business Resource Center, which is our C3, which is where our donations come into our programmatic elements.
So if people want to donate money, that's where that's, all right.
It would fall under that same nonprofit structure.
So obviously you've been involved with both the Tulsa Regional as well as the Black Wall Street Chamber.
Yep.
So what are some things from your experience with the Tulsa Regional, a few things that you really enjoyed about what they did that you kind of bring with you? Mm-hmm. And what are some things that either that you've thrown away or that you've chosen to do differently that you think is important?
The Tulsa Regional Chamber was just a class act. Every event they did was beautiful, on point. They had incredible people producing those events, some my dear friends to this day. So that level of quality is something that I took with me. And I feel like that is where a chamber shows that they are really working, and it should show in how we show up for our community. On the other side, it's pay to play over there. And while small business was the majority of chamber membership, it was really like the 1% that funded everything of all the corporate sponsors, that very top tier. So I knew that the Black Wall Street Chamber couldn't rely on memberships at $250 per person. So that felt like it was putting membership on my community. It was their responsibility to be a member. And I just knew that was hard. I couldn't, in many points in my life, even working for the Tulsa Regional Chamber, pay another organization $250 to be a member of it. Mm-hmm. So I said, well, we're going to have to get our dollars outside of our community. And that's going to be on just the vision and the legacy of Black Wall Street. So we started telling the story, taking people outside of Tulsa, kind of like saying, hey, we're here. And that umbrella is Black Wall Street Nation, our idea of like trying to make sure that this story is being told outside of Tulsa and we're not an echo chamber, and then letting the dollars flow in that way. It's been helpful. Walmart was really our first person to say, you guys have something here. They signed a multi-date contract with us to do tourism. And so we've hosted probably about 500 of their employees from the Bentonville office back and forth. So me and my team drive down there. We ride down with them on a bus. They get 3 tours. The cultural center, they get a walking tour with Cody Ransom. The museum is optional. And then they can do the walking tour, Vernon AME as a tour. So you get 3 stops and a catered lunch by a Black-owned caterer. And then typically some sort of conversation that might include Christy or Vanessa or something like that. So we just recently hosted SMU for their civil rights trip that they take annually. So we are really trying to do those kinds of things in order to be a little different and pull money in and not just rely on our members to support our, salaries.
So it sounds like you're already doing the work that the state says that you need to do before you can get the funding.
We really think we are doing the work. And so I think this is proof, right? We wanted to prove that it was something that was important. Yeah. Jeffrey Tannenhouse, who runs Tulsa Tours, he's from New York. And he came to us about 1.5 years ago, and he said, hey, I was leading tours at the Trade Center, where the Trade Center had been bombed. He said it was like a sacred place. There was the same sort of somber, but yet like touristy nature. He said he quit his job and moved to Tulsa through Tulsa Remote, and got so much business with his tour business that he was doing in New York. He said, everybody's asking about Greenwood. And he said, as a white man, he didn't feel comfortable doing it. So he called us and said, if you guys can use my booking platform, but I need you all to do individual tours for people when they come to town, the onesie, twosie tours.
Yeah.
And we said, sure, we'll try that. Well, it wasn't super successful because it was just hard to get people to know about it. We were making every Saturday at 10 o'clock available and standing around, and you know what I mean? People, but it was only like maybe 3 or 4 at a time. But through that partnership, we started doing group tours and family reunions and now corporate tours. Mm-hmm. So that was our launch pad for us to get more in the tourism, and hence Walmart started calling. So really cool partnerships with people who just offered their services, trying to fill a need. And we still link to him. If people really want a one-off tour, they can call us and we'll do it. But it's really turned into our bread and butter.
Shout out to Jeffrey, whose audiobook I edited. He's the city bike guy.
Yeah. He's so great.
He's a cool guy. I haven't seen him in a while. Hope he's doing well.
Yes.
Are you still doing the tours on those 3-wheel? Whatever those things are called?
It's called Drive Tulsa. It's one of our members, Willis Epps, and they are scooters, but they're a little more souped up than the Lime scooters that you see. But they look really cool, and they're one of our partners. So when you come and you reach out to the Black Wall Street Chamber and want a tour, that is one of the options. You can get a drive tour of Greenwood on the scooters, or you could do any combination of all the other places that I mentioned. Those are the partnerships that we have.
So I always wonder because, Tulsa had kind of we'll say a cultural moment with, there was Watchmen, there was Lovecraft Country, you had the Centennial, everything with Trump. Like there was a lot of eyes on Tulsa. And I think the city dropped the ball a little bit on capitalizing on that moment. But at the same time, how do you balance tourism and letting people, hear the story, but have the appropriate
response to it?
Yeah. And respect for what it is. So it isn't just, for lack of a better term, celebrating a tragedy and bringing that in.
Yeah.
But still understanding that there is a need and people want to experience the joys of Black Wall Street as
and
well.
the resilience and the excitement.
I think tragedy porn was the term you were looking for there.
Tragedy porn.
I was avoiding that term, but yes.
That's the term, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think part of the Walmart experience has been really good is because they created a playbook, something that they created that kind of sets the tone and gives some articles that we provided just so they can have some context. And then Francetta Mays, who is one of our docents with Vernon AME, she says something so powerful when they enter Vernon, as she says, you're on a crime scene. Greenwood's still a crime scene. And that's super powerful. So I think people, when you hear that intro, automatically start to think differently about the kinds of pictures they're taking. And we love pictures. We want people to take pictures on Greenwood up and down. This isn't saying no, but you're not TikToking on Greenwood. You're not, throwing your butt in a circle, all of that stuff. You're like very much understanding that people died here and there's blood underneath your feet. And so that's been a really powerful part of the tours we've been doing is that's the theme that runs through it all. And part of what I think the community had been begging for, right? I think they thought the museum would sort of fulfill that, but it hasn't. And so they need this, I call them perspectives tours. We need more people to come and give their version of what they feel on Greenwood. So we have Yolanda Arnold and we have Cody Ransom and we have Christy Williams and Francetta Mays. I do an equity tour of Greenwood. I talk about DEI and the inequity and the gentrification of the building. So everyone's got their viewpoint. Some people talk about economics and the loss of wealth. Some people are all about history. This is where this happened. This is where that happens. I want people to know there's a breadth of opportunity to hear about Greenwood 1,000 different ways, and you still won't have gotten it all. And so that's the excitement about our tourism efforts.
On that equity tour, are you standing like in the Vernon AME parking lot just staring at OSU Tulsa? You want to talk about that?
I'm usually standing on the ball field looking at Santa Fe Square and the vast
that works
building
too,
and the hotel.
Yeah.
But that's usually,
Got him.
I could stand a couple of different places.
Yeah, there's lots of good equity lookouts, I guess.
Yes. Well, and I know this is more from what you were doing when you were working for the Tulsa Regional Chamber, but obviously more and more diversity, equity, inclusion has been under attack.
Yeah.
And I know that everyone in this room understands the importance of it. But if you could talk about why it's so important and if it makes sense in the context of your chamber as well.
This is going to blow y'all's mind, but I did about 3 years ago a total, what was it, a 180, 360, a 180?
360 would get
all
you
the way back to where
we
it started. Okay, a 180 on DEI, and it wasn't working.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it wasn't working because I did it at the chamber and every little thing was questioned or asked about. I said, let's start using equity versus equality. What do you mean by that? Are you giving out handouts? Everyone had questions about what that meant. I was being hired by companies across the nation and hired to tell them what to do around DEI, and they still can't pull the trigger beyond a DEI committee. Right. Yeah, no one up top was willing to make any really hard decisions around DEI. So we kept being in a 1.0 mode. We never could get out of it. So I was like, oh, DEI is done? Great. Let's move on. I had stopped teaching about it in that framework of like it needing to be there and in place a long time ago. I'm about aligning with your core values as an organization. Who do you say you are? If you say you're this, this, and this, then it'll reflect in your policies and practices. And if you're not, and you're really ready to hang back the segregation sign in whites only, then great. I just know that that's not where I need to do my work. Everyone says, oh, you poor thing. How are you faring during all of this? Busier than ever. Yeah. My phone will not stop ringing. Everyone wants DEI, but don't call it DEI. So we call it climate and culture work. We call it all kinds of things, but we don't say DEI, but we need it and everyone still wants it. So I could honestly quit the chamber today and be very successful with my consulting business on DEI. Seriously, yes. So
your company just be don't call it DEI.
Yeah. They're like, we need you, but just invoice us this thing. Don't say that.
DEI. Well, yeah, I think you point out the irony of like the attack on DEI work, which was that organizations were just doing it for show and not doing it for real. And so if we want to get rid of that track, I'm fine with that too. Like, let's have organizations that actually care about making it a more inclusive space. Right. Like if that's one of their core values, then hopefully they will do the things needed to put it into their organization without just like bringing in a show pony to be like, see, we're doing DEI things.
Right. And that's a hard role to be in. And that's what consulting, I loved consulting, but that was the hardest part, was that, oh, you don't really care. I'm just here because you get to say I'm here. Oh, man, my little heart, that was hard. And I went into a lot of companies that weren't really interested in doing the work. So, but they were happy to write the check as long as I just
take that money.
Yeah. And didn't necessarily want it. One of them said, I said, well, we'll want to set some time to share the results of your, assessment with your team or whatever. Depends on what they are. Okay. I thought we were transparent here. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's just, I've worked at nonprofit too, of like gone through, sort of not, this isn't DI related, but just gone through like team building. We need to work better as a team, whatever, bring in consultants who they pay a lot of money to. The consultants tell them what their employees have already been telling them, and then they don't do it. And I'm like, oh, I could have done that for free.
I'm telling you. That's wild. And it really wasn't even Tulsa that got me started. It was the work I was doing with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. They were like, we're not leaving DEI. So we need you to teach at our Institute for Organizational Management. So I do that every year for the U.S. Chamber. And so again, they believe in the value of it. And so I'm going to keep doing it because it's important to them, and companies show you what's important.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the numbers do show like more diverse and inclusive workforces are more productive and make more money. So like, I don't even understand what we're fighting over here exactly, but
I don't either.
It's, I guess, again, it goes back to sort of the white fragility of, the group in power just being like, I don't want to talk about how I'm me.
I think it's not even that. They've convinced themselves that if a white person is hired, it's because they're qualified. And if somebody isn't, then they must not be. That's the only explanation for why a white person wasn't hired.
It's a loss of perceived power. And I don't know how to soften that blow. But we, certainly my community has been operating with so little for so long. We hear all these weird things coming out of the Trump administration about rolling back DEI and segregation and all this. And I think the majority of Black people are just like, so?
Yeah.
We already feel like we're not wanted here. It doesn't matter whatever you do to us. We'll just recreate Greenwood, and you'll figure out a way to burn it down again, and then we'll go from there.
Well, I just saw a thing again. I hate just using like a Facebook post, like meme as a point of fact, but I'm pretty sure this is accurate. Which like the first Black teenager to go from a segregated school to a non-segregated school just turned 70, and I'm just like, wow. And even if that's wrong, and she's 80. That's still not that long ago.
It's not that long ago.
Yeah, it's not that long ago.
No, it's not.
Yeah. Segregation is not that long ago.
It really isn't.
People act like it was century. No, it was not that long ago.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And we just celebrated Martin Luther King. So many, like what?
I know.
It's like ridiculous, you guys.
Yeah.
I can only laugh because I'm just like, what can I do within my sphere of influence? Yeah. Because if I am focused up here where all that nonsense is, I would drive myself insane. Yeah. I have to just do what I can do within my own community.
And I think that's come up on our podcast quite a bit, right? That especially when there's more and more chaos nationally and even at the state level, focus local. Listen, Tulsa has a long way to go, but if you look at our mayor, you look at our city council, there's hope, right? There's hope. That at least at a local level, people are willing to, vote for the people who have a hopeful view and are trying to make Tulsa better. I wish they would do the same thing when they vote for state level and national level, but we'll get there.
We'll get there.
But at least if we focus on local and make our everyday lives the best we can, sometimes that can insulate you a little bit from the impact of
I totally agree.
That national and state
But even
chaos.
like for me, who I feel like incredibly well connected, I feel like I know a lot of people, having access to our mayor, the way like he's a friend. I've never had that in my entire life. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's a crazy feeling that I think some people never even think, oh, GT, I can call GT.
Yeah,
I hung out with him last night at the barbecue. I like know our mayor.
Yeah.
Like I know him, y'all. That's crazy to me. And I'm blown away by it. So I can't even imagine what it feels like for him and for, other Black citizens. There's just uncommon access like never before. I can text the mayor.
Right.
Wow.
We had that when we could text our city councilor with KJ. It felt powerful, even though it was just like your friend is doing good work. You're like, you're right. But it's like
you could text her about your street lights. She wouldn't fix it.
She wouldn't answer, but I know she'd see it.
You could have said, right. You could send it to someone. That's how I feel.
I don't know my current city councilor's phone number. But yeah, I mean, is that something powerful white Tulsans have been feeling their whole lives? And like,
yes. Yes, it absolutely is.
Yeah.
That conversation came up with Monroe and I, even about his inauguration. I said, oh, well, we'll be there. We want to be up front, da, 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 da. And I heard they'd never even done an inauguration like that before. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But anyway, the point is I thought we should get some big, be up front. And I don't think he even mentioned the Black Chamber. Shoot, it was a Native ceremony. It felt like, oh, here we go. It's just going to be a blackface, but kind of business as usual. So it's been interesting kind of navigating on what truly is going to be different. And I have a lot more access. I've been able to see him a lot more. And we talk a lot about equality indicators and the ways that we can align. And he's got the right people in the right spot. So, and one of our board members, Dr. Jabran Pasha, just joined his team. So life is good.
Yes.
My former doctor, Dr. Pasha, I miss you.
Friend of the podcast.
Yeah, friend of the podcast. Guest of the podcast.
Wait, he's not taking walk-ins at the mayor's office?
No, sure. He should set up an office right there.
I need health insurance.
Right. He's in the building next to my building.
Yeah, you just walk right there. Yeah.
So cool.
No, I mean like having the chief resiliency officer as the vice mayor, assistant mayor,
deputy mayor.
I can remember the term.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean just like if you were going to show a sign that like you cared about the quality indicators and working on making Tulsa better, hiring that person to be the assistant mayor is a great. It's a great sign.
Is it
deputy mayor? Why keep saying no one's an assistant mayor? Why do I keep saying that?
No. There's
Mayor Junior.
No, it's true. I mean, to your point earlier, organizations, whether they're government organizations or private organizations, business, whatever, they show you what's important by how they hire, where they put their resources.
Exactly. You can see right off the bat, and I love the clarity of knowing exactly where to align and when not to. And I just give my energy to that, which is, so I didn't ever want to I love some of the approach we're taking now is it's not like, will you give us money? It's do you align with us and do we want your money?
Yeah.
That's the mind shift I've had to make running this chamber.
I think along those lines, because this is something for a lot of the people we talk to, are, trying to do good.
Yeah.
So how do you balance, putting your energy into things that are sort of an uphill fight that take a lot of energy, a lot of effort versus the things that are more, where you can get everyone in alignment and takes less energy, less resources to make good happen. So how do you balance those two things?
That's such a great question, Chris. How do I balance those two
How are you so amazing?
One thing I've been saying is that I don't believe in accidents. So throughout my whole life, everyone I've ever met, I really cherish any connection I have. And in this role, I've been calling in favors. Like, I've known a lot of people. And now I'm like, yo, I need you to help me here. This is an area I don't know, or I need this introduction, or I need this. So I've been balancing it in that way. And I've been really granular on the community side. I'm talking like supporting the vendors. I'm out on Greenwood on Saturdays when there's nothing happening, but there's one person under the bridge. I'm there like with some money, like trying to. So I feel like the more I dig in on the community side, then everything else, the right people find themselves in order to support us in other ways that aren't my gifting or talent. And so that's kind of how it's been working out. And I have walkaway power, y'all. This is not a forever job for me. I don't want to retire as president and CEO of the Black Wall Street Chamber. I have 3 years max to set this organization up as successfully as I can. And then I want to step away and go live another life. I don't know what that is, but maybe I'm consulting on the continent in Africa. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
But I just want to see one thriving Black-led organization be set up and be around for a while and have the longevity that I want my kids, my grandkids to be a part of.
So what does this organization look like when you're ready to walk away?
It's not tied. Its success isn't tied to whether Kuma Roberts is there or not. That's number one. Already looking at separation agreements and grooming the next CEO, who I definitely have a good relationship with, and someone who I think is going to be a perfect person to follow me. I'm not ready yet to say who that is, but I think that that's going to be a really great move. We have a strong board of individuals from across the nation, not just here in Tulsa, that we have a really great funding strategy that's more like over 3 to 5 years. We're not just sort of going month to month in a lot of ways. There's so much that I would like to see.
Getting those state dollars, I assume.
Getting those state appropriation dollars, a revolving loan fund, very much like Avanzanto Juntos or some other small dollar gap lending for small business owners is something that would be really fascinating for us. So we're working on all those things. Yeah.
So in the meantime, how can people, I mean, we already started talking about this earlier, but how can people help you and the Black Wall Street Chamber of Commerce in the meantime?
Well, the biggest thing is to become a member. We have a variety of membership levels. We have our individual level that starts at $250, and that is for a one-person business. We have nonprofit levels, which are $2,500 level, pretty standard flat rate for nonprofits, and corporate levels begin at $5,000 and up. We just created a church membership because there seems to be in our community a lot of churches that want to be aligned with us. Mm-hmm. And so we try to create an option that allows them an opportunity to be present at events or sponsor table or vending for their vendors. But then we did a Friends of, which is just like a $50 symbolic, like I want to give, because we felt like we weren't capturing people that wanted to give in some way. So we're excited to get all that off the road. So join us. bwschamber.com would be fantastic. Check out any one of those levels and be a member.
Well, Kuma, thank you again for joining us. And as always, this is fun. And you do seem to be like one of the most well-connected people in town that I know. So it's incredible to hear. It's amazing. And thank you again.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all for listening to our episode with Kuma. Please make sure to check them out online. The website is in our show notes, but it's bwschamber.com. They are on Facebook. They're on all the social medias. And if you're on social media, why don't you also make sure to follow Pod for Good on Facebook, Instagram, and Blue Sky. And please subscribe and leave a review if you can. If you can't think of anything nice to say, though, don't. As always, Tulsa, get it done. And by get it done, I mean finish all of the construction, please, everywhere between where I live and where I work. And be kind to one another. Bye.